The sun rises slow and golden over my farm, spilling warmth across the fields. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and fresh-cut hay. Rows of corn sway in the early morning breeze, and the rhythmic sound of water trickling from the irrigation system fills the air. It's peaceful. This land has been in my family for 3 generations. Every inch of it worked with sweat, calloused hands, and the kind of patience only farmers understand. I step off my porch, my boots crunching against the gravel, and make my way toward the water pump. I always check it first thing in the morning. Water is life out here, especially in this heat. But the second I get close, my gut clenches. The pressure gauge is low. Too low. Frowning, I twist the spigot. A weak stream dribbles out, barely enough to wet the soil. That's odd. The well runs deep, and I just checked it yesterday. A bad feeling stirs in my chest, but I push it down. Maybe it's just a clog in the pipes. I glance over at the white picket fences that separate my farm from the neighboring property. Large, sprawling, pristine. That land used to be owned by another farming family, like mine. But 3 years ago, they sold it to a couple from the city. Suburban types. HOA-minded. They built a big house, hired landscapers, and planted a lush, green lawn that never seems to dry out, even in the worst of droughts. Karen Winters owns that house. The kind of woman who never waves back when I nod in greeting, who clutches her purse tighter when I walk by at the farmer's market. I've caught her staring before, watching me, my family, my workers, with that look. The one that says you don't belong here. I shake off the thought and head back toward the barn. The water issue isn't urgent yet. But if the pressure doesn't come back by noon, I'll have to investigate. By mid-morning, it's worse. I walk the perimeter of my farm, tracing the irrigation lines. The soil is already drying out in patches, the leaves of my crops curling at the edges. That bad feeling in my gut grows sharper. I check the well pump again. Still running. Still no pressure. Something's not right. Then I notice it, just past the fence line. A section of the main water pipe, the one that connects my well to my irrigation system, has been tampered with. There's a new pipe spliced in, one that runs straight toward Karen Winters' property. I freeze, my pulse hammering. No, it couldn't be. I follow the pipe with my eyes, past the fence, past the neat rows of hedges, and straight to the underground sprinkler system that keeps Karen's lawn a perfect, unnatural shade of green. She's stealing my water. I take a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This is more than just an inconvenience. This is theft. This is sabotage. And worst of all, I already know exactly how this is going to play out. Because I've seen it before. The way people like her think they can take from people like me and get away with it. But not this time. By noon, the fields are bone dry. The soil, once dark and rich with moisture, is cracking under the relentless sun. I stand at the edge of my crops, heart pounding, sweat sliding down my back. The weak trickle from my irrigation system isn't enough. If I don't get this fixed, I'll start losing plants by tomorrow. I grab my wrench and kneel by the pipeline, examining the connection near the fence. Up close, it's clearer now, this wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with my water supply, splicing in an extra line. The pipe runs straight under the fence, disappearing into Karen Winters' yard. I clench my jaw. Could it be a mistake? Maybe a plumber messed up, connected to the wrong source? But deep down, I already know the truth. I wipe my hands on my jeans, glance toward her house. It sits on the hill, towering over my land like a castle lording over the village below. White columns, wraparound porch, oversized windows. The kind of house that doesn't belong out here in a place built by farmers. And then I see her. Karen Winters stands by her flower bed, wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat and gardening gloves that look fresh out of a catalog. She's holding a hose, spraying down her lush hydrangeas. The water cascades in thick, endless streams, soaking the soil, pooling at her feet. I tighten my grip on the wrench. That should be my water. As if sensing my stare, she looks up. Her mouth curves into a smile, tight, forced. The kind people wear when they want you to know they're being polite, but don't actually want to speak to you. Something wrong, she calls out. I hesitate. Part of me wants to march over there right now, demand answers. But I don't have proof. Not yet. Just checking my irrigation, I say, keeping my voice even. She tilts her head, feigning concern. Oh, having some trouble. I nod, watching her closely. Water pressure's low. Real low. She tuts, shaking her head. That's awful. This heat wave has been brutal. Brutal.
Right.
Brutal for me, while her lawn is drinking my well dry. She flicks off the hose, pulls off her gloves, and steps closer. You know, she says, lowering her voice like we're friends, I've been meaning to ask, are you sure your system is working properly? I mean, these old setups, sometimes they just fail, don't they? There it is. That casual, condescending tone. Like I don't know my own land. Like I haven't been running this farm longer than she's lived in this town. Something twists in my gut. This isn't just water theft. She knows exactly what she's doing. But she thinks I won't stop her. I force a smile. Maybe. Guess I'll have to take a closer look. She nods, pleased. Then, without another word, she turns, steps back onto her perfectly watered grass, and disappears inside. I exhale, slow and controlled.
Fine.
She wants to play this game?
I'll play.
But I don't lose. By the next morning, my crops are in distress. Leaves curl at the edges, the soil is dust beneath my fingertips, and the sun beats down like a hammer. Meanwhile, Karen's yard is an oasis, her grass thick and green, her flower beds bursting with color. I don't waste another second. It's time to confront her. I march up the gravel path that separates our properties and knock on her massive front door. The brass handle is polished, the welcome mat spotless. Everything about this house screams privilege. The door swings open, and there she is, pristine as ever in a crisp white blouse and tailored shorts, her blonde hair tucked behind pearl-studded ears. She blinks at me, surprised, like I've just interrupted something important. Can I help you? I keep my voice calm but firm. Karen, I need to talk to you about my water supply. Her smile barely falters. Oh, I nod. My irrigation system is failing because someone spliced a pipe for my well. That pipe runs straight to your sprinkler system. For a split second, her eyes flash something sharp and calculating. Then, just as quickly, she laughs. Oh my goodness, she says, shaking her head. You think I did that? I cross my arms. I don't think. I know. She sighs dramatically, stepping out onto the porch. Listen, I understand things can get tough. Maybe your system is outdated. Maybe the well's drying up. But, honestly, accusing me? That's a little much. I grit my teeth. I check the pipe myself. You're stealing my water. She leans against the doorframe, her expression shifting, less friendly, more condescending. Now, I don't know what you're implying, but I think you need to be careful. Making baseless accusations like this, well, I wouldn't want there to be misunderstandings. Misunderstandings. I know exactly what she's saying. She's used to people like me being quiet, backing down. But she picked the wrong farm, the wrong family, and the wrong damn fight. I'm fixing this today, I say. I'd suggest you call your landscaper and tell them to find another water source. Her lips tighten. I'd be very careful about trespassing, you know. Some people might take that very seriously. I hold her gaze. I don't trespass. But I do call the county inspector when someone's violating property lines. That gets her attention. She straightens, the fake concern in her face fading into something colder. You do what you have to, she says smoothly. And I'll do what I have to. I turn and walk away, but my blood is boiling. She's not going to stop. And if I don't act fast, my farm, my livelihood, is going to pay the price. Gathering evidence. I spend the next few hours tracing the pipes, taking pictures and documenting everything. I record the splice connection, the trench running beneath her fence, even the pressure readings from my well. Then I call the county water board. They promise to send someone out in a few days, but I don't have a few days. By then, my crops could be unsalvageable. So I call someone else. Luis. He's been working my land since he was 16, same as his father before him. If there's anyone I trust, it's him. 20 minutes later, he pulls up in his truck, dust kicking up around the tires. He steps out, adjusting his cap. "What's going on, boss?" I hand him my phone, showing him the pictures. He scrolls through, his face growing hard. "You gotta be kidding me." "Nope." He whistles low. "That's bold. But you know how this is gonna go, right? They're gonna act like we're the problem." I nod. "Not this time." Luis thinks for a moment, then grins. "You want proof? Let's get proof." Turning up the heat. That night, we set up cameras, small, discreet, near the pipes. If Karen or her landscapers mess with them, we'll catch it. And we don't have to wait long. The next morning, just before sunrise, I check the footage. And there it is, clear as day. A worker, one of Karen's hired hands, sneaking onto my property with a wrench, adjusting the spliced pipe. I have everything I need. But before I can even decide my next move, something worse happens. A county sheriff's car rolls up my driveway. The deputy steps out, hand resting on his belt. "You the owner here?" I wipe my hands on my jeans. "Yeah. What's this about?" The deputy glances at a notepad. "Got a complaint from a Mrs. Winters. Said you've been harassing her. Trespassing, making threats." I let out a slow breath.
Of course she did.
Karen's not just stealing my water. She's trying to bury me. But she just made the biggest mistake of all. She underestimated me. The sheriff adjusts his belt, glancing up at me from beneath the brim of his hat. "Mrs. Winters says you've been trespassing on her property, making threats. That true?" I exhale slowly, keeping my voice level.
No, sir.
"But I do have proof that she's the one trespassing and stealing my water." The deputy raises an eyebrow, but before he can respond, Karen Winters herself appears at the edge of her porch, a smug little smile painted across her face. She's dressed like she's hosting a garden party, pressed khakis, a pastel blouse, but the glint in her eye tells me she came out here to watch me lose. "Oh, thank goodness you're here, officer," she calls sweetly. "I was so scared. I just don't feel safe in my own home anymore." She folds her arms, tilting her head like she's playing the part of a victim in some low-budget courtroom drama. I clench my jaw. She's good at this. Twisting the truth, using that thin layer of concern to mask what she's really doing. The sheriff looks back at me. "Mind explaining what's going on?" I nod. "I've been having water supply issues. My irrigation system nearly dried up, so I checked the lines. Found an unauthorized pipe running from my well directly to her property. I confronted her yesterday, told her to disconnect it. She refused. And now, suddenly, I'm the one being accused." Karen lets out a little tsk, shaking her head. Now, she says, her voice dripping with condescension. "I understand how some people might not fully grasp the complexities of modern plumbing, but I assure you, officer, I haven't done anything improper."
Some people.
I see the deputy's jaw tighten slightly, but he keeps his face neutral. Karen sighs dramatically. "Honestly, I think this is all just a misunderstanding, one I'd love to resolve without escalating things further. I know what she's doing. She's trying to make me sound unreasonable, like I'm the aggressor, like I should just take the loss and walk away. But I don't flinch. Instead, I pull my phone from my pocket. Good thing I recorded everything." Karen freezes, just for a fraction of a second. I tap the screen, and the video plays. Crystal clear footage from the hidden camera Luis and I set up. The sheriff leans in, watching closely. On the screen, a worker in Karen's yard kneels by the fence, wrench in hand, adjusting the stolen pipeline. The angle is perfect, showing him glancing around before securing the connection, sending my water straight into Karen's lush, green paradise. Karen's face drains of color. But I'm not done. I swipe to the next clip. This one showing her landscaper bragging about how they hooked up to the farm's well to keep the lawn pristine during the drought. The deputy exhales sharply. He turns to Karen, his expression unreadable. "Ma'am, you want to explain this?" Karen laughs, but it's high and forced. "Well, obviously this is just some mistake. I had no idea this was happening. I hired professionals, I trusted them. If anything, I'm the victim here." I fold my arms. Then why did you lie about it yesterday? Her mouth snaps shut. The deputy turns back to me. You got proof this is your well water? I nod and pull out another document, my property deed, which clearly shows the water rights belong solely to me. I also hand over the pressure readings, showing the drop in my supply. The deputy takes a long, slow breath before finally turning back to Karen. Mrs. Winters, this ain't looking too good for you. Karen scoffs, her mask slipping. Oh, please. It's just water. It's not like I stole anything valuable. I step forward. Tell that to my dying crops. She opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. The deputy straightens. Well, here's how this is going to go. I'll be reporting this to the county. You'll be required to remove the unauthorized pipe immediately, and you'll be looking at fines, hefty ones. And if Mr. Carter here, he nods toward me, wants to press charges for trespassing and theft, that's his right. Karen's smugness evaporates. Theft. Stealing someone's water supply is theft, ma'am, the deputy says flatly. And, depending on the damage to his crops, that could mean criminal charges. She spins toward me, her face red with rage. You can't do this. I meet her gaze, my voice calm. You did this to yourself. For the first time, I see something real in her expression.
Fear.
She thought she could bully me into silence. Thought she could use the system to push me out, like people like her have been doing to people like me for generations. But she forgot something. This land, it's mine. And I don't lose. Karen's face is frozen, her hands gripping the edge of her porch railing so tight her knuckles turn white. She glances at the deputy, then back at me, as if waiting for some loophole, some last-minute escape route.
But there isn't one.
Not this time. I watch as the realization dawns on her. The privilege, the smooth-talking, the fake victimhood, it's not working. Not with the evidence stacked against her. Still, she tries. This is ridiculous, she snaps, her voice rising an octave. You're taking his word over mine? I am a taxpayer, a homeowner, and this is how you treat me. The deputy doesn't budge. And Mr. Carter here is a landowner, ma'am, with full water rights to this well. And your workers were caught on video illegally siphoning it. That ain't up for debate. Karen scoffs, shaking her head. This is a setup. He probably rigged that pipe himself just to frame me. Luis, who's been leaning against his truck, lets out a sharp laugh. Yeah? And your landscaper just happened to admit to it on video too? Damn. That's some bad luck, Karen. She whips toward him. Don't talk to me. I stay quiet, letting her unravel. The more she talks, the worse she makes it for herself. And then the second car pulls up. Not a sheriff's car. A sleek black sedan with a County Water Board logo stamped on the side. Karen's head snaps toward it, her eyes widening. Game over. Public exposure. A man in a button-down steps out, clipboard in hand. He glances at the sheriff, then at me. Mr. Carter? I nod. I'm Mark Reynolds, County Water Board. Got a report about illegal water usage. I step forward and hand him the same evidence I gave the sheriff, videos, pictures, documentation of the water loss. He barely schemes through before letting out a low whistle. Yeah, this is bad. He turns to Karen. Ma'am, this is a serious violation. Karen forces a smile, her hands trembling. There must be some mistake. I didn't authorize anything like this. Reynolds cocks his head. So your landscaper just decided to dig an unauthorized pipeline from your neighbor's property on his own? Karen opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. Reynolds doesn't wait for an answer. He flips through his papers. The county takes water theft very seriously. With the drought restrictions in place, this kind of violation carries steep penalties. He looks at the deputy. You pressing charges? The deputy nods. Looks that way. Karen lets out a strangled laugh. Wait. Let's not be hasty. I can pay a fine, right? How much? Reynolds glances at his paperwork. First offense like this, plus the drought violation. He does a quick calculation. Then he looks her dead in the eye. Minimum penalty, $15,000. Karen's mouth drops open. Her face drains of all color, her carefully curated poise crumbling in real time. 15. You can't be serious. Reynolds shrugs. That's the minimum. And that doesn't include potential criminal charges. Karen whirls on me, desperation creeping into her voice. You're really going to do this to me? Over some water? I cross my arms.
Funny.
That's exactly what you said when I confronted you. She stares at me, chest rising and falling rapidly. And for a moment, I think she's going to double down again, try to dig her way out. But then a sound. A screen door creaks open, and out steps Karen's husband. The final blow. I've seen him a handful of times, always in expensive golf polos, never bothering to acknowledge me. Today, though, he looks like a man who just woke up to find his entire world on fire. Karen. His voice is tight, controlled. What the hell is going on? She spins to face him, shaking her head rapidly. I don't know, they're lying. They're twisting everything. Her husband's eyes flick between me, the sheriff, and the water board official. Then he looks at the clipboard in Reynolds' hands. How bad is it, he asks. Reynolds doesn't sugarcoat it. At least 15 grand in fines, and if Mr. Carter presses charges, potentially criminal. Her husband goes rigid. Then he exhales, long and slow, rubbing a hand down his face. Jesus Christ, Karen. I didn't mean. I told you not to mess with the neighbors. He whirls on her, voice rising. Do you have any idea what this could do to us? Do you know how bad this looks? For the first time, Karen looks genuinely afraid. I can fix this, she whispers. He lets out a hollow laugh. Oh, yeah? And how exactly are you going to fix a county violation? You can't just charm your way out of this, Karen. I watch as she shrinks under his glare. This is what she's always feared the most. Not losing the water, not even the fine, but being exposed. She built this perfect image, the flawless housewife, the respectable community member.
But now?
Now the sheriff, the county, her own husband know exactly what she is. A liar. A thief. A fraud. And the best part? She did it to herself. I turn to the sheriff. I'm pressing charges. Karen gasps. Wait, please. But it's too late. The tables have turned. And this time, she's the one drowning. The handcuffs click shut. Karen lets out a strangled gasp, her carefully maintained composure shattering as the deputy pulls her hands behind her back. You can't be serious, she screeches. I'm not a criminal. This is just a misunderstanding. The sheriff adjusts his hat, unfazed. Water theft, property damage, trespassing. Charges are serious enough, ma'am. Her husband stands off to the side, arms crossed, shaking his head. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. The disgust in his eyes says it all. Neighbors have gathered now, murmuring among themselves. Some shake their heads in disbelief. Others avoid my gaze, like they don't want to admit they knew something was wrong but said nothing. One woman, Mrs. Caldwell from down the street, steps closer. Her voice is hesitant. I had no idea she was stealing from you, Elijah. I just thought you weren't maintaining the farm properly. I look at her, taking in the way her eyes dart away, the way guilt lingers on her face. You didn't think to ask? I say, not unkindly, but firm enough that she flinches. She swallows.
No.
I guess I didn't. There it is. The quiet truth no one wants to say out loud. Karen got away with this for so long because people like her get the benefit of the doubt. And people like me? We have to prove we belong, over and over again. But not today. Today, Karen Winters stands in front of the whole town, her wrists bound, her crimes exposed. The sheriff nods at the deputy. Get her in the car. Karen thrashes, her voice shrill. Wait.
Wait.
This is his fault. She jerks her head toward me, her face twisting in desperation. He trapped me. He set me up. I step forward, meeting her wild eyes. You did this to yourself. Her breath hitches. For the first time, she really looks at me, and I think she finally understands. She lost. The aftermath. The next few weeks, the town is buzzing. The news picks up the story. Wealthy suburban woman caught stealing from a black farmer during a drought. It's not just local news either. Some outlets start talking about it on social media, calling it a symbol of entitlement, of racial injustice, of how power dynamics still favor people like Karen. Her husband filed for divorce within a month. Turns out, he wasn't too happy about the six-figure lawsuit I filed for damages either. The county fined her way more than the original $15,000 once they factored in repeat offenses. Karen tried to fight it. She lost. I, on the other hand, won everything. Got my water rights reinforced. Got financial compensation for my crops. And more than that, I got something Karen never expected: respect. People started seeing me differently. No longer just that black farmer on the edge of town, the one they whispered about when they thought I wasn't listening. No, now they knew what I had known all along. This land is mine, and I'm not going anywhere. A final moment of justice. One evening, just before sunset, I stand at the edge of my fields, watching as the irrigation system flows steady and strong once more. Luis pulls up in his truck, stepping out with a satisfied grin. "Never thought I'd see the day," he says, shaking his head. I chuckle. "Took long enough." He nods toward the road. "Saw Karen the other day. She's still in town, but barely. House is up for sale. Guess she can't afford to stay here anymore." I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few months settle into something lighter. Karen Winters built her whole life on privilege, on the assumption that she could take what she wanted without consequence. She was wrong.
And now?
Now she's the one watching her world dry up. I turn back to my land, my home. Justice tastes sweet.